Okay, wonderful. So that means what she's saying is that it's so natural, right? In some ways, what Anupa is saying is, it's actually quite natural to be
selfish or to be put yourself first.
exactly.
Right?
Wonderful.
Take care of yourself first.
But that's a constructive selfishness. And
Yeah,
that's very different.
That's not
Excellent.
There's a big difference between.
Now, exactly. So we need to understand this is a very, very important thing where we differ so much from the normal thinking that people have.
Like
Right? That this kind of selfless and all. We don't have the Vedic vision is not like, oh, be selfless and all that. It is, so we need to understand its value very well. First is very important. What, everybody is to a certain extent self-centered. Right? What does it mean? This is something very important to understand. Everybody, when you're born, for you, who is the center? Yourself. Please understand. There is nobody who is born keeping somebody else as a center. So everybody is self-centered because you're meant to live the rest of your life as you being the center. You can't live your life with somebody else being center of your life. So this is why we start with self as being in the center, and this is something which is universal. There is no exception to this. Okay. Now, what happens is the problem. Where does the problem come? This self, which is at the center for all of us, we all also mistake it to be small. So imagine the paradox. You're the center, but you're small. Do you understand? A center and small is a kind of contradiction, right? You are a center at the same time you are small. So your whole attempt in life is to
Make yourself big.
exactly. Whole attempt in life is to make yourself big. That smallness, a center cannot be small. So the small is something you want to make it big. Now, the only method that we know to make ourselves big is what?
Put yourself first. To do things for yourself.
Self-interest.
Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
for yourself.
Constantly work to get things done according to your
And enhance
self-interest.
yourself.
Exactly. So that means most of this attempt to make yourself big actually involves so many of these, hoarding wealth, hoarding power, right? Because the center from small, it wants to be big. So our natural tendency is what? Take as much as you can from the world, right?
Pump up your
And
ego.
exactly, and have that self-gratification. And in the process, what happens to others? Don't really care, right? So this is what we call being self-centered. This is why, to a certain extent, all of us are what? In some ways, selfish in some ways. Selfish, right? Because the whole attempt is hoarding and self-gratification. And the consideration for others in the process is not very much. This is what we call a selfish person. Okay? Now, in spirituality, very often people say, oh, this is not a good position. It's true to a certain extent. This is not good position. So let's become selfless. Very common. Right? Now, Vedantians are too smart. We don't agree here. Why can't you become totally selfless, even though it sounds good, right? Sounds wonderful that you be selfless. Why? What is the problem with this selflessness?
Selflessness is not good. You have to be selfish.
You don't have to.
No. Selfish is like unless you are strong yourself, you will never be able to be of any use to anybody else.
So,
If you go to an airline, the
Put
first
the
thing they say
oxygen
is
mask
that
on yourself first.
you put your mask first and then you help. So unless you yourself are strong, you will never be able to be of any help to anybody.
excellent. This is something which is so important to understand because this selfless somehow implies, right? What it implies is you always put somebody else first, and as a result, what happens to this center which is a natural? It becomes weaker and weaker. Do you understand that? So that means when you become weaker and weaker, there is a
Need more help from others.
exactly.
You can't be able
You
to help others.
wonderful.
Everybody
Yeah.
Do you understand this? So
supporting
that
you,
means
getting you.
constantly.
You feel
So that means it's
you're always a
some
bichara.
vichara, exactly, right? So that means what happens is this center becomes weaker, and in fact, when that center becomes weaker, what happens is the nature has a mechanism to make you see that there is something wrong. So there is a certain resentment that sets in. Please understand that if you become totally selfless, when you don't actually nurture yourself and you don't nourish yourself, there is, and somebody else becomes the center of your life over a period of time, you cannot avoid resentment. The weaker and then resentment.
And the
Because-
person you are giving all this to also will resent you.
And will have no value for you, right? Because
all becomes so dependent that
So-
actually making them also weak.
absolutely.
True.
Do you understand that?
That doesn't
So
help.
that it doesn't help anyone. What?
Oh, these two are on their own thread.
I know what she's thinking, that's all.
Sister-in-law behind you.
So now, look at all this. Family communication. Looking at the other and all these non-verbal communication is going on.
Let's make this.
Guys, look
Deva,
at
Deva.
your story.
For better understanding,
Yes.
let's make this Tushar family a case study.
Please, let's go. Everybody will become a baby.
Yeah, we need to understand this.
No one is sure.
Please,
the whole class
the thing
understands.
is, in our growing years, I've been in this family 40 years. In our growing years, all our seniors and especially our mother-in-law had so many bicharas in her life whom she was always we used to get upset with, oh, mom and her bicharas.
Okay, so what ultimately happens is that nobody actually can stand a weak self because you're the center. Do you understand that? So therefore, over a period of time, this selflessness actually doesn't serve anybody. Because when you act, you are convincing yourself that this is a virtue. Understand the conflict. You think, you convince yourself that I'm so nice, I'm so considerate, I'm so giving. At the same time, you don't realize that you're actually becoming weaker, and you also don't realize that there is a certain amount of resentment that is setting in for you. And later on, what it can do is, it can actually, even others, how they perceive you, others will actually not even give you the due respect. And suppose you have kids, you create a bad example for them. You understand this? Because then nobody actually, even I have a very good friend, and so her son, interesting conversation. Her son tells her now they're obviously adult. So her son tells that, Mom, father was so rude to you and he never actually said anything. And I, as a child, felt so bad for you. Right? The child has the sensitivity. And he says, me as a child had to almost come and protect you. And you couldn't protect yourself. And he says, I'm carrying this burden for rest of my life that mom is like, why is mom not at all standing up for herself when father is bullying her all the time? And the son is now, it's not the mother. Mother is kind of programmed to think this is a wonderful thing, wonderful thing. Who's facing the conflict? The child is facing the conflict. Can't stand
Also,
it.
very often as a parent, you tend to make your child the center of your life
That is
as
also
well, right? Like that happens a lot.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
then
See that you have to nourish yourself, because when you
Not
nourish
possible.
yourself, what happens is even the child begins to have right signals. What happens is you confuse the child because the child has a right program. The program is right. That's why the child sees very clearly when you are convinced and you are in your trip of being selfless. The child sees something is very, very wrong.
You know, Nima, this is also a gender-based thing where in India, women are programmed to be
To-
selfless and men are programmed to be selfish. And it's all a bit contorted because it becomes a power game. And
Absolutely, but then you see the effects of this, the distortion carried for generations. So therefore, you have to change it, right? Because just because this is a program, it doesn't mean we all kind of.
What you're saying is very true. Because basically, that is creating so many of the conflicts which we
Distortions,
have.
exactly.
Just this general programming which we have of selfless.
That ad with the mother. There's some ad for her, the child now she's asking the boy to help with the laundry.
now there's a lot
Because she
now
knows
there's
the daughter says I'm leaving, quitting my job.
Okay,
quit
see,
my job.
one thing also I want to say, it's not about equally sharing. I mean, it could be, but it doesn't have to be. It's all about your self-esteem, right? You could be doing all the work. That is not at all an issue. But what do you think about yourself? This is a much deeper question than, we always try to solve the problems at surface. I'll tell you a problem, the solution is always remaining at this, in 80s when I was working with the UN in New York. So there were relatively few women and there were more men in the meeting. So after the meeting, all these women, 3-4 women and maybe 10 men, right? They would always come out and complain, and they said, you know what, see again this meeting was so dominated by male people, men only were talking and men only were doing this and men only were doing that. I used to always wonder, I said, what did you do to speak up? If you don't speak up, then all your anger gets projected on men. We were not given importance. This is, you have to, exactly, suppose if you are making a good point and nobody is listening to you, then it's a valid kind of a thing, right? But if you are not saying anything and you keep on being angry with men, and then, in the meeting everybody should have equal this thing. I mean, these are superficial solutions, right? What is important is how much confidence you have in yourself without thinking about whether I'm a male or a female. What point do I have to make? And I must have enough courage and this thing to make the points that I want to make without being apologetic about it or without being anything. Please understand, we constantly, because even if you do that, instead of trying to solve the problem, we heighten the problem in our heads. Because then the anger sets in towards this so-called other gender. So many, this women empowerment, it's impossible to talk to them. They are angry. So therefore, I'm not talking about creating some whole equal right movements. I'm not at all. I'm a Vedantin. A Vedantin is a very simple person. He's not projecting your anger on others and saying they are bad and they are like this and they are like that. It's just working on what your own self. Right? So therefore, this is something that is very, very important, that this selflessness over a period of time carries confusion and it carries on for generations. So therefore, we have to break free from that, and that is something which is very, very important.
You'll never realize your own potential.
Sorry?
You have so much of
Absolutely.
potential if you yourself
Absolutely.
put yourself at
Down and you're not the center, what will you do? See,
there's
this
so
is
much
wonderful.
potential which you're killing, self-killing. You're
Self-killing.
just not allowing yourself
Absolutely.
to further yourself.
Wonderful. See, according to the Vedas, see the Vedic vision is incredible, right? So, why are you here on this earth? You're not here just to hang around for 80 years and then disappear one day, right? And because anything that you accumulate here and you get, it nothing will take with you. So what is, you're so busy for 80 years and then all of a sudden, what? End? Can't be like that, right? So that means you're here on this earth for moksha. What is moksha? Moksha is defined as your personal freedom. What does it mean? Whether you're a male or you're a female or whoever you are, everybody wants, because this smallness, the center cannot stand smallness. You're programmed like that. So therefore, you are supposed to know free yourself from this smallness by knowing your true nature as already full. But to go from this smallness to already full, you have to, there is a journey. What is this journey? This is an already accomplished fact. Here you don't have to do anything, but this smallness is so ingrained in your psyche. All your behaviors, all your attitudes, all your emotional life is all based on this smallness. So that means this growth that is required so that this already full reality doesn't seem abstract, doesn't seem so far away, is to change your mindset. And that mindset change will percolate in everything in your life. So this is something that you actually, this whole journey is, you are not talking about selflessness, neither we are talking about this selfish person who's constantly only grabbing and insensitive to others. Then what is that growth? Neither it is this, nor it is this. Continuing to be this grabber. So what is what we call what we call freedom from the ashaucham of selfishness? What does it mean? So that means
reflect and
your-
think whether this is for your betterment that you're doing it, or to make yourself stronger, or actually being grabbing
other people also.
or harming other people in doing that.
So that means it has many different
Are you
aspects.
helping or you're harming?
The shaucham, or removing the ashaucham of selfishness, requires many different steps. It's not one thing that you have to do. The first thing that it requires is that to come away from this kind of this self which is the center has to be nourished. Generally, our nourishment only comes from accumulation. But how the definition of nourishment we have to change. What is a self-nourishment? If I need 25 things, if I need Gucci bag and so somebody came to me that I have a huge issue. Now two sisters are fighting. One is a fight. One sister wants to buy Rolex watch, and the other one says, "Oh, you are like totally." So now the 2 hours are spent in which watch you should buy. Right? So that means all our nourishment comes from what? All these acquisitions and how more and more refined we get in our acquisitions and all that. But that nourishment the definition of nourishment has to change. And what is that definition? It's not that other things are bad. It's not that I'm saying that you have to give up all of that. But it cannot be the source of your nourishment. The source of nourishment has to be what? Knowledge. One thing is that you want to, in fact, you want to be a strong, no matter who you are. You want to feel
It's not complete.
weakness, exactly. So that weakness from where we were, the lack of self-worth that we have, the smallness that we have, that if in your life you don't take care of it, and no matter how many things you acquire, you will never get rid of this weak self. So that for the
Emotionally mature.
excellent. Emotionally mature. What else?
Accommodating others without giving up your self-esteem.
Excellent. Without being,
Compromise.
yeah,
Feeling
this,
compromise.
constantly this weak giving up your own,
Self-respect.
yeah, your own self-respect. Certain amount of resilience to challenges. You know, so life is all about dealing with so many things which don't actually happen your way. And certain amount of resilience where you can deal with things. You are strong enough to deal with things, and you don't get totally thrown off, right, by situations. So suppose you begin to be this person, then what will happen is this self-centered person which is small will now become what?
Complete and full and
Exactly. Will relatively complete. And full. Right? Now, how far? Now, suppose you only do this. When you do this, what is important is, what Nirmala is saying is, it doesn't, as you mature, it not only includes you, it naturally includes excellent. Accommodation, emotional maturity, it naturally begins to include others. The definition is resilience. Resilience you get to challenges because you are able to understand the totality of the situations, other people, why they did what they did. So that means when you begin to include others, then what happens to your narrowly defined selfishness?
You start becoming a more giving, and you understand your base is so strong that you can give.
Right?
Give more.
So what we are talking about is your base is so strong, you're so mature that expansion is a natural outcome of that strength and maturity. Do you understand that?
And you also understand interconnectedness much more. So, because your sense of self is not limited by the
You
self.
don't think that you've done everything yourself.
Yeah. it's like
You know that you have been
everyone's part
nurtured,
of
and
that.
you can do the same thing.
Right? So what it then means is you out of strength. Please don't. It's not out of weakness. Out of strength, you are much more inclusive, giving.
Contribute more.
Exactly. Contributing. Understanding your interconnectedness. Right? And as you include more, you naturally, but out of bigness and expansion, this requires expansion. It is totally contrary to selflessness, which is weak, not giving importance to yourself, self-depreciating. Here it is out of understanding and expansion. And what happens to selfishness is what? It is gone. But is the self-centeredness gone? No. You are meant to live the rest of your life as you being the center, but that center is so evolved that it includes everybody else. This is a noble way of living. Noble way of living because neither you're selfless nor you're selfish. You are this person who is noble, who is taking into account everybody and doing what needs to be done. And at the same time, what you have emotionally, you're strong, you are accommodating towards others, you have a certain resilience. So this is what this is how you become. This is what we call enlightened self-interest. Enlightened self-interest. Right? We are not talking about a narrowly defined self-interest. We are talking about enlightened self-interest. Now, all the Vedic prayers, I want to see these things which now the psychology is talking so much about. We've been talking about for thousands of years, and we have prayers related to that, right? So that means, what does it mean? There is a Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, right, which is a brilliant Upanishad, and there is a statement that is made in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and it says, Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. What does it mean? Atmanaha tu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. This is a huge statement. It's not a small statement.
Sees the self in all its devour.
No. Okay. What it means is that it highlights this point that you can never remove this self as being the self. What does it mean? Anything that you like is for yourself. Right? What does it mean? Anything that you like, right? Sarvam priyam bhavati. What does it mean? Everything that you like is for what? Atmana to kamaya. Because it pleases you. Anything that you like in this world is because it pleases you. Then it goes ahead and it says, you think, this is something that I was talking about, you think that you love your husband, or your children, or whoever, your parents, right? Now, why do you like them? If you really ask one more question, why do you like them? Why?
Because it pleases me, gives me joy, gives me happiness.
Super. Atmanastu kamaya. So that means I like them because in their company I feel myself as full and pleased. Now, the next question is, over a period of time, what happens if the children don't do as you want them to do, the husband doesn't do, the parents don't do what you want, or they say things which hurt you? What will happen to this pleased self?
Trouble self.
Is no longer pleased, then what all the resentment is, it may never be, even you may never admit it to yourself because you are conditioned to think, oh, respect your parents, respect your husband and all that. So you may be blocking it completely, but over a period of time, nobody likes a non-pleased self. Nobody likes it. Nobody can claim, I love being not happy. When somebody violates me, I get pleasure. If you have reprogrammed yourself like that, that means you have done, accumulated a lot of distortions. So therefore, what is important is, you cannot give up this need, that love for this pleased self. Now, what is important is that this pleased self we want, but our constant need for this pleased self is either being submissive or being demanding towards all these people. Either you are submissive or you are demanding. Two kind of dispositions that we have to find this pleased self. Both of them are dysfunctional. Now you need to discover this pleased self by not only being aware of what your needs are, but also being sensitive to the needs of others. In this equation, others are also present. If you try to eliminate others, no good. If you try to eliminate yourself, equally no good.
You need to respect each other's space.
Absolutely.
Oh, and
So
also
that means keep your
Keep your own
own.
self-esteem.
Absolutely. So that means when there is needs of yours are honored and needs of others are honored, this pleased self is a healthy pleased self. It's not a compensation. Do you understand this? So that means that leads to sensitivity. If you want to include the needs of others, at the same time, it requires what? Self-confidence. Because you include yourself. It requires sensitivity. It requires expansion. You understand? So that means who is a mature person who is pleased by accommodating both your needs and needs of others. Do you understand that? So this is something which is, this is what is the human growth? You need to be clear. Only then you can work towards it. If you yourself are full of all these funny ideas and then you try to grow, hey, it'll go all over the place. You don't even know what is the goal, what is it that you want to accomplish. A lot of our journey, the so-called spiritual journey, is all over the place because there is no clarity. We don't think about what exactly is it which is even healthy and then work towards it. If somebody says something, we go for that. If somebody says something else, we go for that. There is absolutely lack of any clarity about what is it that I'm searching for and what is a healthy behavior and how do I get there. Right? So this is what we call that the mature person's pleased self. You
You're
can't.
saying, Nima, that you cannot grow without others growing, others around you growing.
No, what I'm saying is I have to be clear about what I want in life and what is my growth before I even embark on the journey of self-growth. Suppose my starting point of self-growth is I want to be selfless. It's a wrong starting point. Do you understand that? And then I go further and further in so-called selflessness. I become weaker and weaker. I become more and more dissatisfied, resentful, and I still try to camouflage it. Then again, but people who see you, they see it very clearly. So it creates confusion all around. Why? Because I myself am not clear as to what it is to be growing as a human being. Do you understand that? So that means if somebody is a bully and I feel fear of speaking up, I have to not complain that that person is bully. I have to work on
Speaking of.
I have to work on my self-confidence and my fears which keep me from, as a matter of fact, speaking up. Speaking up doesn't mean fighting.
With each of your connections, with husband,
Each.
children,
Absolutely.
parents,
Everybody.
boss,
Everybody.
whoever it may be.
Whoever it may be. So it was interesting because absolutely whoever
Roadside
it may
ray,
be.
it could be anybody, it could be strangers.
Absolutely.
What happens in a situation where you really don't have choice and you're completely dependent? So sometimes if it's say a servant, let's use an example of a helper in the house, and they're dependent.
Yeah. Let me tell you one thing. It's interesting.
So what is
No, so how
What is the
then,
difference?
They are dependent
on you for your salary. And they can't. Let me tell you, this is a real story. When I was living on Carmichael Road, there was this lady, and Saloni also knows her. She used to come and work part-time at my place and Saloni's place and Rupa's place probably.
You
Yeah.
told us
In
all
fact,
about
it's
it,
through
yeah.
Rupa that I came to know. And she had, it was amazing. She's working, right, in Jharu Pocha and all. She had such a good self-esteem, that woman. It is incredible. So she also was working up for a while. And then she said after 1 week, 10 days, oh, I'm not working there. So I said, why? Because they all need money, right? I mean, they're survival is, and she said, no, they don't treat me well. They shout at me for no
So
reason.
there's nobody who doesn't have a choice.
Okay.
Absolutely.
If you have the self-esteem,
See, most
If
of
you
the
have
time,
self-esteem, then you have a choice. If
absolutely.
you don't have self-esteem, then you will say that I don't have a choice.
Superb. Right? Then you will tell, you'll justify, oh, I have my son who is going to school and I
can't
need
afford to
this
leave, I
fees.
have to
But if
suffer.
you have that self-confidence, she will find some other job. It's not like she will not find it, right? Exactly. So that means lack of self-confidence creates a scenario for us that I'm stuck in life. I'm stuck in life. I have no choices.
So here we are talking about self-belief.
So sorry?
So here we are talking about self-belief.
Self-belief means what I'm talking. Yeah, self-belief is not self. It's not some exactly. I don't even think that you just have to believe in yourself. What you need to have is respect for yourself and about your boundaries and not letting anybody, nobody can cross those boundaries.
When you say somebody doesn't have a choice, that is not correct.
That is not correct. It
Everybody
is
has
a
a
mental
choice.
situation where you tell yourself, I don't have a choice. You may not exactly have the choice as, but you always have something options.
Maybe not a pleasant choice.
Sorry,
Might not be a pleasant choice, but you have.
but you have choice.
yes.
But that unpleasant choice will be only for that period.
See,
Well, I mean,
the biggest
Get out of
problem.
the comfort zone.
See, the biggest problem is we create, I know some professor, by the way, from MIT who was visiting. She has started a Dalai Lama Center of Wisdom at MIT. And he came to my class and he listened to my class and after that I asked him to speak. So he spoke. And this is something that is, he said, and which we say all the time, and this is that any situation arises, we create only two scenarios for us. What is the scenario? Either I just keep quiet and take all the insults because I don't want to rock the boat, or I say what I have to say,
Not very nice.
not very nicely usually. And then what I have to, then there is a fight. And then, okay, this is a fight or whatever, right? So when that situation arises, we create in our mind, it's a commonest thing that we create two extreme scenarios in our life. What is human growth? Human growth is thinking beyond these 2 points because in between there are millions of options that we don't even consider. This is what the Shastras have been telling us. Kartum Shakyam, Akartum Shakyam.
What's that?
And Anyathava.
Shakya means possibility.
Yes, Anyathava Kartum Shakyam. I want to give this Sanskrit because I want you to know this is not my concoction, this is in the Shastra. This is our scriptures, they are brilliant. Thousands of years ago, they had figured it all out. And not only in terms of the final vision, but the whole human growth and what is living a healthy life. So that means, what is this? What does it mean? Kartum Shakyam. Kartum Shakyam is I can do it this way. This is the first thing that comes to my mind. I need not do it because now I say, oh, I don't want to rock the boat and all that. Our thinking only moves between these two possibilities. In between, there are so many other possibilities that we don't even explore
Doing it differently.
and doing it differently. And this is why it seems as though, to this type of a mind, it seems as though I have no choice. This mind falls in that. If I speak up, he will divorce me, and then what is, I don't have income, my child is this, and therefore I don't want to rock the boat, so let me keep quiet. You create a scenario for yourself, which is an extreme scenario, and then you're constrained by your own scenarios. Please understand. And that's why you never even explore other ways. Do you understand this? So therefore, this no choice is really a concoction of a mind which moves between here and here. The minute you start looking at all the other possibilities, your mind
This is
becomes...
the biggest thing even in the stock market. Everybody creates either a completely bullish scenario or a bearish scenario, and there's a scare, and that's when the opportunity is.
Very
It's
true.
never linear.
Yeah. So that means the
Fear and
human...
greed. That's fear and greed. Those are the two emotions that
Absolutely. Mostly run by two emotions: fear, insensitivity, greed, anger, emotional outbursts. This is what we do. This is our life. So this is how we do. So that therefore this selfishness is the shaucham of removing a shaucham of selfishness requires a lot of thinking. It's not like, oh yeah, just don't even think about yourself. That is not what it is. It requires a lot of understanding. Okay? Now, next. Who will read?
You are saying something about
Pratipaksham. Okay. So what is it? What is important is how do you come out? As I told you, see this selfishness, because here mostly one given thing of selfishness is talked about, right? So that means this is a person who's only looking at one's own needs. Pratipaksha bhavana, what it means is includes others' needs also.
Yeah.
Right?
The associa of self-condemnation. Universal ethical values, consciously or unconsciously, remain as a matrix for self-judgment of any thought or action that transgress their standards. Whenever I fail to abide by a general value, some conflict usually registers in my mind. Conflict becomes guilt, and guilt turns into an underground chorus of self-condemnation, associa, subtly pervading my mind. Self-condemnation can be called subtle associa because to many it is not apparent that self-condemnation is antara associa, mental uncleanliness. In fact, those who are unaware of the truth of the self may regard self-condemnation as a useful goal to prod us to change our nature. This is not correct or a useful understanding of ourselves or of the term self-condemnation. Condemnation of oneself cannot be justified any more than condemnation of others. Both rest upon the faulty understanding of the self. Both produce turmoil in the mind. Self-condemnation can be controlled by Pratipaksha bhavana, by refusing to condemn myself, while at the same time deliberately thinking of non-self-condemning thoughts. Analysis of the nature of self-condemnation will help me exercise Pratipaksha bhavana. On analysis, I will always find that in this body-mind package, which I term I, the body that carries out the act cannot be condemned. The hands, the legs, the feet, the tongue, and all the other parts of the body are inert, jara. The body itself lacks self-consciousness or independent will. Similarly, the senses and the various functions of the body are not independent, conscious processes. Performing their jobs indiscriminately, either automatically or upon direction from the mind, they cannot be held culpable. Neither can the mind be labeled the culprit. The mind is not a simple, definable entity, but is an ever-changing aggregate of thoughts in motion. Some beautiful, some not beautiful, and some useful and some inconsequential. The mind that thought the thought which led to the act that I condemn, is now the same mind that thinks the thought that condemns the mind that thought before. Thus, the mind is an aggregate of available thoughts at a given point in time in an ongoing process characterized by constant change. The mind is only a process that performs as a useful instrument. It cannot be condemned. Then what can be condemned? Can Atman, the name for first person singular I, be condemned? From the scriptures Shruti, I know that Atman illuminates the mind. Atman is Satchit Ananda, boundless, timeless awareness, fullness, form-free and action-free. Being neither the doer nor the enjoyer, neither the karta nor the bhokta, the Atman cannot be blamed. Shall I continue?
Yeah, just go on till there.
Therefore, what can I condemn? I can condemn just a given thought, neither my body, nor my mind, nor my Atma. If there is anything that justifiably can be condemned, it is but a given thought born of ignorance or error, a thought that ordered an improper action. Thus, if self-condemnation is analyzed properly and we inquire into what does what, the result will not be condemnation of the self, but condemnation, if any, of an act simply for what the act is, and of the particular error-born thought behind the act. Clearing away the self-condemnation leaves the mind free to discover, as a personal value, the ethical norm that has been transgressed. The asaucha of regret is removed. If I have done the act, there is regret. If a particular thought has done it, free from the sorrow of regret, I can address myself to understand what gave rise to the thought. In India, small boys each year on a special day we used to repeat the following Vedic mantra. Bhagima, I know
Yeah,
you
you are
pronounce this correctly.
Okay. So now, before we go into this Sanskrit thing, let's what exactly? What is self-condemnation? What does it mean?
Beating yourself unnecessarily.
How do we do that?
By labeling ourselves.
Okay, great.
You get a bad thought and you say, why did I get that thought?
Okay, wonderful.
Delete.
Thought or deed.
Okay. So what are the self-condemnation is you beat yourself up, right? This is what she says. And the mechanisms through which we do it is what we say. What did you say?
You say, why did I think this? Why did I act this?
Yeah, this is a very common thing. And in
Right,
fact,
why did I get such a
spiritual
problem?
teaching also says that, oh, don't have fear, or don't be afraid, or don't have the anger, don't have sorrow. And then the minute you have sorrow, then
You think that why
enter
did
into self-condemnation, right? That, oh my God, I'm not able to get rid of it. I'm still stuck with it. So this is what we call, that also can take the form of self. So you say this thought is, in fact, we don't even say this thought is bad. This, in
this
fact,
thought
is
which
like-
made me act is,
so no, in fact, what we say is I am bad because
I got this bad thought, because I got this thought.
so that means the whole of I gets, nobody says this thought was wrong. In fact, he's trying to say, hey, you only need to say this thought needs a correction. You don't need to involve the whole of.
Label yourself.
Excellent. Right? So this is what we label ourselves by the transient thoughts that pass by. So what happens? The whole of I becomes what? The passing thought. So the burden of that becomes so big for us because the whole of I begins to be labeled by something which happened at that given point in time. So this is something which is a very common way to condemn ourselves, right? We want everything perfect, and therefore, what are the other ways in which we condemn ourselves? If the thought we think is inappropriate, whole of I gets
Label.
labeled. Okay? How else?
becomes that same thing, identifying the I as the thought.
Okay,
I is not the thought.
yeah, wonderful.
I
So that is, yeah,
self-
you're right. So this is this. Now, the self-condemnation, please understand, can come in so many different ways that what comes to my mind is interesting, right? So, Anupa at the beginning of the class, and we were all kind of praising her hair. She has created a mental image of what straight hair is
Looks good on her.
is beautiful, right? Now, curly hair, it has got nothing to do with everybody else may love curly hair, but her own mental life with reference to her own curly hair is what?
It's not nice, it has to be straight.
It is not good enough, right? So now, what is interesting is this carry, any part of your body image, and so many, we have this, it's not only to do with hair, right? See, the body is designed to be imperfect and it is designed to be declining. Now, if your whole, and you take care of different parts of the body just like you take care of your thoughts, it's wonderful. It's not like you have to be indifferent to it. But because there is some shortcoming which is also in your view, not even overall shortcoming, that becomes the whole of I. Do you understand the level of distortion there? First, it's one given part which is your perception. It's not even the reality. But on that, you superimpose whole of I. I am not attractive. Do you understand the extent of projection involved here? So if this becomes your this thing, what is your mental life to yourself? Please understand, as we live life, there are two things going on. One is you deal with situations outside. The second thing is you give messages to yourself about what's going on. Right? Because everybody has to have a narrative. What is a narrative? You need to have some story of your life, right? You have to think, oh yeah, from a child I did this, I went here, this was my experience. In that narrative, who is the hero? Who's the protagonist? About this, can you watch one whole movie and have no opinion about what was the nature of that hero? No. So everybody has a narrative about themselves. As you live life and as you go through situations and as you begin to deal with it, right, you create your own image of yourself, which is what we call a mental image. Nobody may ever know what is your self-talk to yourself. People only see what you, she has this and she has that, and nobody could have ever imagined that she had this thing that, oh, this girl, until she said, right? So this is what our mental life is another thing altogether. Do you understand that?
The narrative in our life is different as what.
Excellent. And in fact, when you deal with others, that narrative may never even come out. So others may not even know it. But for you, it is the most intimate thing. Most intimate. So therefore, if this narrative about you, who is your life in the center, is all over the place, that narrative is constantly putting you down in one way or the other. Either with reference to your thought life or with reference to your body. It could be in terms of, we saw this movie, Amadeus, your talent and your intellect. This guy was brilliant, but he was obsessed with what Mozart being, and he destroyed himself and he destroyed Mozart also. Your intellectual accomplishments. I had one person, it's interesting. always coming first in all the exams and everything. But he told me that, I would beat myself up. Suppose he had 95 and the next one had 90. So he was by far the best. He, instead of enjoying the fact that he came first and he had 95, he would be obsessed and he will really give himself a hard time about how could I miss 5 marks. This is what in the corporate world they are called perfectionists. There is a name for that. Who is a perfectionist?
But is that healthy?
No, that is the thing. It is one of the most unhealthy
Oh,
attitudes.
but if you say that I got 95 and I'm like, no, what went wrong?
Wonderful.
That's fine.
That's fine. That's fine. That is wonderful,
Yeah.
right? That is just objective.
Yeah,
Where did I miss it?
huh?
But if I give myself a hard time, and then I said, how could I do it? How could I do it? Where did I? The pressure. It is nothing to do with just looking into it.
Yeah.
That's healthy, right? But suppose I beat myself up, and I cannot accept the fact that I missed 5. So that is what that we call, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and that is because we have some perfection scenario in our head. And in this relative world, there is nobody who meets this kind of, So I have a friend also, she was saying that, you grow up and you grow up thinking that, you have to have a lovely husband, and you have to have lovely kids, and you have to have wonderful this and wonderful that. And it's true, many of us manage that, but within this wonderful, how many little things go wrong? Many. So that
Actually, it's interesting because the more people talk about the imperfections in a normalized way, I think the more natural
naturally all
conversations
become
can be.
super.
And unfortunately, we tend to disguise and hide, and it all gets a bit crazy. But if imperfection is considered normal,
So that's an insecurity within yourself that you do.
so yeah, but everyone's perpetuating it. It's like even among good friends, I find sometimes everyone is trying.
Everybody has some insecurity that they don't.
That they're trying to hide.
But I'm saying it's something in our whole, like in America, I
You just
noticed-
project yourself only the
Larger than life.
Facebook and everybody's.
Correct.
If you see anybody's Facebook page, "Arey, what a wonderful life they
Life
are living."
But don't you read through it? I've been so funny when I see a husband praising his wife on Facebook.
Oh, wishing her happy birthday.
I'm
I'm
trying to
saying, what is happening?
Should you see so
Let me
that?
delete
Go
my
on the
Facebook.
bed only.
Did you wish that person?
Not on Facebook, it's on Facebook.
So he's living and he's seeing all the wonderful lives that people have. Okay, so now why is this perfectionist is this particular term which actually is not just as Anupa says looking into, what could I have done? It is putting pressure. This goes with that. Okay? Putting pressure on yourself. Okay? So now imagine we have nobody can have 100% perfect thoughts all the time. Nobody can have the totally perfect body all the time. Nobody can have this intellectual accomplishments which are, the most superior. And everybody will, suppose, but we have this in mind that I have to be this. What is our mental life? In all these areas, we put pressure on ourselves and we give ourselves the message of inadequacy.
Can I ask you one second?
Yes.
My question is that the mind's job. We said that we have 64,000 thoughts. Right?
Yes.
If everybody could see all the thoughts which I had, I would be a very embarrassed person.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't want everybody to know all the various thoughts which I had, out of which some of them are, reflect. I also feel uncomfortable that why did I get that thought? That I want to become an improved person, whatever. And why are these thoughts coming to me? Okay? So the job of the mind is to give you thoughts. I don't think we need to be embarrassed by those thoughts or whatever. We need to just say thank you, but I don't want to feed these thoughts or encourage these thoughts. I got several good thoughts also. Let me encourage and let my mind go in that direction. Because you get such horrible thoughts.
Yeah, true. All of us.
Everybody does.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You.
So instead of trying to, so what exactly? So now, what's your question?
So my question is that when they say over here that
Thought is different, is what you're saying.
it says that it is but a thought given thought born of ignorance, a thought that ordered an improper action. The improper action is in your hand. The job of the mind
Yeah.
is to give you all the thoughts, and you have to.
But the mind is
Then you have to
also
also be able to say no. Not your mind. Your intellect has to say, boss, these thoughts I don't want to encourage, and these I want to encourage.
That's wonderful. So that's what we are trying to do. When you listen to this book or human growth, that's exactly what we are trying to do. No? What we are trying to do is that nobody can totally stop all these 64,000 thoughts. But what we have, generally what happens
Can we improve the quality of our thoughts?
Absolutely. See, when you listen to this and when you think about all of this over a period of time, we saw that neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
We saw that the thinking patterns actually change over a period of time, and the old patterns begin
That's
to
basically what
drop.
we need to do.
Right? So that's what we need to do. But what is the self-condemnation? Here the problem, this is the right thing to do, but our starting point is not this right thing. Here he is talking about the starting point. So don't mix up with the starting point which needs correction and what is the end that we have in mind. Okay? The starting point is that we have this whatever 64,000 thoughts, and we also deal with situations. And as we do that, we have a narrative. We are talking here about a narrative about ourselves, right? We are not talking about all the 64,000 thoughts, but suppose I ask you, right, that Tushar, tell me yesterday's all thoughts, which are 60, you don't know, but suppose I ask you, so, Tushar, tell me really, how do you think about yourself? Your narrative you will remember. You may not remember all the thoughts. So what we are trying to correct here is not all the 64,000 thoughts, but we are trying to correct the narrative that we have about ourselves. What does it mean? That our impression about ourselves, which are related to imperfections in so many areas and loaded on to whole of us. Right? If you understand that this part is not something that I need to nurture, because in that there is a confusion, and you understand what is the nature of confusion and correct it, there is no problem. But what happens is that thought becomes the whole of you, and you become inadequate in your own self-image. Here it is all to do with your own self-image about yourself, and that self-image is based on your talk to yourself. How do you talk to yourself, which is not visible to anybody else? It is only known to you. Do you understand that? So that self-talk and the quality of that self-talk has to improve. Do you understand this? How do you improve the quality of self-talk when all these imperfections are going to remain? Do you understand? This, if you wait for all your thoughts to be perfect before your narrative to change, it's never going to happen. If you want a perfect body before your narrative to change, it's never going to happen. If you want the most superior intellect that nobody else surpasses, in order for your narrative to change, it will never happen. What the question, the crux of this issue is, this will remain imperfect. In spite of that, you need to change your self-narrative, your own story about yourself. How will you do it?
By recognizing your true nature, which is perfect, and then working towards.
See, it's true. then ultimately Vedanta helps in changing the narrative with a total paradigm shift. The paradigm shift that Vedanta talks about is you're not this little individual, but you are the whole. But the way Vedanta is that before you even get there, you need to change the smaller narratives first. You won't get to that bigger knowledge unless you
You
have sorted this out first. What all of us try to do is, we try to think that, oh, get there and everything will be automatically solved. It doesn't get automatically solved.
You have to start solving one.
Super.
And then you get there.
Super.
Other way around.
It's the other way around. It's the other way around where you actually start solving all of this and then you get there. But what Vedanta does is, mostly people don't even have in mind where you have to get to. So what Vedanta does is, it
Gives you the
shows
bigger
you
picture.
very clearly where you have to get there, but you can't get there just directly, magically.
Shows you
You
the
have
steps
to
also.
exactly. It shows you the steps. This is what makes Vedanta an amazing body of knowledge.
Rajiv, you have a question?
No, it's nothing, I don't think it was pertaining, just perfectionist and being a perfectionist yourself or demanding perfection as
From
well.
others, yeah.
Right. So, I forgot my question, I'll come back.
But that's what Rajiv is saying is, not only we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be this perfect human being, but we also expect others to be this perfect human being. And there it is a disaster for us and for others who are living
Okay,
with us.
I got my question back. Physics, you have, when you send the rocket to the moon, you need the thing called escape velocity to move out of the gravity of the moon.
Yeah.
So I also believe certain amount of pressure has to be put
Yes.
on yourself to achieve something.
Excellent. So that means that's why I'm saying that if you just go here that I'm already perfect and I'm already big and all that, it will not help you in all of this. Certain amount of effort you have to first put in changing this relative narrative before you get to the top. So this is why. How do I exactly? Now the next question is.
You be realistic about what you are.
Excellent. So that means, what it means is, how do I still continue to have this, as Tushar was saying, 64,000 thoughts and still free myself from my self-narrative about myself as not a good person because I have these thoughts.
It's simply because most of the time we are not aware of our own narrative fully. So just being more aware of what's actually going through our mind
Okay.
and being separating them from ourselves,
The
the
book-
thoughts from ourselves.
Wonderful. The book has a perfect way, and this is exactly what Tushar was getting to. He says, neither you can just ignore this thought, just totally ignore this thought. So, suppose that thought made you do something, right? Do something inappropriate. Suppose you were not able to treat it as a passing thought, you got identified with that thought, and as a result of that, you built on that thought, and you did something wrong with it, and you still need to free yourself from the whole of I being condemned. How do you do it? He explains it. He explains it beautifully. If you read it again, you will see. What he says is, you do take responsibility for this thought. You see where that distortion was and why that distortion led for you to do something without putting the whole I in it. Do you understand that? So it is what we call a limited responsibility when whole of you doesn't get judged or labeled.
And one should be that way towards everything.
In fact, towards others also.
I mean, others,
Even
yeah.
towards others.
The
Yeah.
mind that thought the thought, which led to
Exactly.
that I
That is something, but not.
It's now the same mind that thinks the thought that condensed the mind the thought before. That
Exactly.
thought before.
So that means now what happens is over a period of time, this needs to be improved. Wonderful. There is no problem. This maybe needs to be improved. No problem. This needs to be improved. That little imperfect, that drive is there. You need to work on these areas. You cannot just say, oh, everything is perfect. But while you work on these areas, how? Exactly, without self-condemnation. It is, it's as simple as, suppose you have some ailment, right? Somebody gives you an antibiotic. What will it do? It will kill that germ, but it will also destroy everything else. Now you have what? Targeted. What is it targeted? It will only destroy that and not leave everything else intact. This is exactly the same thing. What happens is, when we have imperfections in these areas, our whole of I gets involved, and our narrative about ourselves is always skewed, always, and because the message, all these inadequacies first become the whole of you, and that whole of you in all these areas is imperfect. What is going to be your self-image about yourself? Down in tubs.
So this is laparoscopic enlightenment.
Exactly. Right?
Targeted.
Targeted because you do need to correct it. Without this correction, you can't get there. But while you're correcting, you are freeing yourself from self-condemnation. Do you understand that? This is brilliant. If you understand this, you can embark on your self-growth journey without and you can make the changes necessary in different areas of your life. Recognize where are the problem areas, work on it without your personal narrative about your being that of, oh, I'm no good, I'm not able to do it, oh, I have been like this, I have been like that. All that you have to free yourself from. Did you read? I mean, he's saying things which are very, very important, because what happens is that we skim through, I mean, it seems as though he's saying things and all. He's saying very profound things. And they are not totally intuitive to us, so we need to spend time and try to understand what exactly is he talking about.
Starts with the guilt because of certain, when we have an idea of certain universal values, and when we go against those, or you feel that you have gone against them, is what is starting here. Right?
See, here I am talking about not only is this universal value, this body image that we carry and through which we have self-condemnation. Is it only values? Please don't restrict it because this is your whole mental life. This is, please, the thing that happens to us is we only try to relate it to when you don't follow the values. None of this actually are related to values, and still that leads to self-condemnation. Do you understand this?
Yeah.
Yes, it's not just that.
Otherwise, what will happen is you only think that only you have to follow values. The whole thing you will reduce to you have to feel. That is how the mind works. It oversimplifies things. It doesn't see all the nuances and all the subtleties. Then entire book you will read, and then what did you understand? You have to follow values. What will happen? The complexity of a human growth and all its different dimensions and how our mind works and how do we need to even begin to correct it, all these amazing discussions we bypass. So therefore, this is talking about something very, very huge. It's not that only when you not follow values, you can be the best person in the world and you can have a self-condemning mind. Understand this. This is not small. Because you constantly give yourself messages of inadequacy.
I also get that message that if I'm not condemning myself sometimes, then I think I'm being very lenient to myself.
Okay, so this is exactly, so again bipolar thinking. See, our thinking patterns are so kind of a thing. Either I totally keep putting pressure on myself, or I just let myself be. What does it say? Read this again. What does it say? Yes, this thought which made me do things which are inappropriate, I do need to correct. It's not like taking it easy. Please don't add stories into what I'm saying. I have to be a little strict because we have a non-precise mind and you have to learn to make it precise. Unless you make an effort to make it precise, your mind will always be floating up in the air. So that means we are just talking about leave it all alone. We are taking responsibilities, right? But the responsibility doesn't color the whole of I. It only what? It's a targeted. And this thought requires a correction. Wonderful. That means you're taking a responsibility. But what are you freeing yourself from? I am so bad that my thinking is never right. Do you understand? Do you understand the difference between these two? Neither you are saying everything is right, nor you are.
You have to separate it.
You have to separate the two. The more and more you separate, the clearer and clearer you will become about where are the interventions required. The interventions are absolutely necessary. Otherwise, there is no growth. You just leave everything as it is. It's not. This. If you have to leave everything as it is, what is this book for?
It's like you have to see yourself as the actor who says, okay, this scene I did not do it right, I need to correct it.
So, right? But the whole, I'm a bad actor,
That I don't have to do.
that you don't have to do. Do you understand this? Wonderful. This is a good example. Right. Tushar, say this example. Hopefully this will make you understand what this whole thing is about. Okay? Exactly. Suppose as an actor, you play your movie, right? And you made one mistake somewhere. So either you can tell yourself what?
I'm a bad actor.
Exactly.
Or you can say I made a mistake, I need to correct it.
Super.
But that's if you have a second chance to correct it. What if it's like end of season?
You have to correct it in your
Then
mind.
in your next act.
And exactly. See, life is like that. You don't get a chance to
You're not rolling over
replay
it, right?
the same scene, but you get opportunities.
Sometimes you said something.
No, sometimes I'm not saying it like
Can't take that.
professionally. I'm saying like suppose you've done
There are
something
ways to correct.
and you've done something really bad to somebody,
You
and
definitely
then
can do it, yeah.
it's like that time is you haven't realized it then
Yeah.
as I said.
Okay, wonderful. I'll finish this
Sorry.
and then I'll come to this. It's very important. I want to tell you a story from Mahabharata. It's a beautiful story. Yeah. So okay. Now what here is saying is I'm a bad actor is a whole label. It's labeling your whole self. So what I'm saying is now no, let it be whatever mistake you make. Then that will make you lax like what you are saying. We are not talking about these two extremes. What we are talking about is a targeted approach when you say in this scene and this act there was something that I could have done differently. And now what I have learned and therefore what I correct it next time. Right? And I correct it. So that means the whole of I got involved here. It was specific. Now, does it mean that I'm totally not paying attention to this? I become lax? No. But it is something where I see where there is a scope for change and I change that. This is exactly what he's saying. It's the thought which led me to do something and that needs to be corrected. But that doesn't mean the whole of me is bad. Do you understand? And the more you do it to yourself, you will also understand with reference to others. Because not only we label ourselves, we also label others, right? He didn't do this, he's really bad. Hey, nobody is bad. There also it will become more nuanced. Do you understand? This act of his, I didn't like, maybe it came from confusion and I don't agree with it. Wonderful. Whole of person is bad. There is a lot of your own projection. Do you understand this? This is an amazing value. This is a, see the value. My teacher was a very subtle human being, and the kind of things he talks about are not very intuitive. Generally, when we talk about values, it seems as though we all understand it and it's all very intuitive. So here you have to pay attention because you have to understand what he's trying to say. the more you understand how refined his mind is, how targeted, how clear it is, the more, and why am I don't care, right? But it will benefit you in your life. You will become that nuanced human being. You will become that discerning human being. You will become that clear human being. You will become somebody who takes care of things without beating yourself up, without judging others, without labeling others. This has a huge value for you. That's why I'm a little strict. It's not because I don't care. Whatever you think, you're free to think. It doesn't bother me. But the more you pay attention to this book, the more it will bring about amazing changes in you. Amazing changes. Because it's refined. It's subtle. Seems simple. It's not a simple book. Okay. Now, I want to stop by just giving one little story. I go on and on. Okay. Now, one little story, then I will stop for sure. Okay. Then Anupa said something which is beautiful because you said what that. What did you say?
I mean, sometimes you said you have another chance to correct yourself, but sometimes you say something to somebody and
That you can't.
And now today I realize I've been running now too far gone. That person's not part of your life anymore. Whatever.
Wonderful. Okay. Very good. See, our stories of Mahabharata, they are full of things like this, right? Because you don't know, it's true, you don't know what exactly to do. There is a lovely scene in Mahabharata after the war, right? And now imagine Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, they heard that the Pandavas, there was a war and Pandavas killed all their sons and everything. So imagine what kind of emotion they would have towards Pandavas. Angry, he'll be angry, he'll be, right? Now, who he has to live with after the war? Pandavas only, right? So now, he has tremendous anger towards Pandavas because they killed his sons, right? I mean, not rightly so, but for a father that doesn't come, right? Now, you have to continue to live with Pandavas. And what is more interesting is, how was Yudhishthira treating Dhritarashtra? Utmost respect. He was utmost respect. He never told him, your sons were so mean to us, not even once. Now, you can see the conflict within Dhritarashtra. On one hand, he has tremendous hatred and very, very sad because he lost all his sons and the people who he thinks are responsible for it. On the other hand, somewhere along the line, he also understands dharma a little bit and he also understands that they were wrong. On the other hand, they are treating them well, but at the same time, they don't like it. They don't like them. Can you understand the confusion and the multiplicity of emotions that are going on in the mind of Dhritarashtra? This is mind of everyone. Multiplicity of different things, and that's why it gives us that discomfort that things are not sorted. Do you understand? So this is where in this Mama it's brilliant. So one day, after 15 years of staying with him, he tells Yudhishthira, he says that, hey, there are too many conflicts in my mind. Even though you are treating me really well and I'm very comfortable here, I need to resolve these conflicts that I am dealing with. So this is when he decides to go to the forest, Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha, he says, I have to sort out my own mental life. What did I do? Right? The things have happened. He cannot go back and relive it, but you can think about it today and at least resolve your confusions. The more and more you resolve your confusions, you clear yourself, and this is what we call absolutely. This is what we call Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is when you lived your life fully, at some point in your life, even though you can't go back and change it, right? You need to reflect on it. And the more and more you reflect on it and you put your own thinking in order, what will happen? The future. This is what our whole program of Future Lives, there is you don't come back with the same confusion and you don't relive the same confusion. And this is why you're in this class, because whatever has happened has happened. It's not like you can change, you can go back, but you need to sort your own confusion. If you don't sort your confusion, it will re-manifest, resurface again and again and again in different characters, different people, different situations, but it will resurface again and again. So this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm telling you, this is not a small thing. To meet a teacher like this and to listen to something like this is undoing your confusions that you are carrying for generations. It's not a small thing. This is not a small book. Give it the right value and you will see how it will transform your life. It is amazing. So that is what.